still leading an awesome marketing team that is experimenting, driving growth. Data is going to be more important now than ever, and we have more access to it now than ever. So figuring out ways to harness that, and probably I think for any marketing leader, technology is going to be a big part of a CMO's role. So embracing that and being not only a marketing leader, but a technology leader too.
Some stories are about climbing ladders. This one is about building them. In this episode, Erica Goodwin invites us into the deeply human side of leadership, the pivots, the failures, the lonely decisions, and the quiet resilience required to keep showing up. From breaking barriers in male-dominated industries to redefining success on her own terms, Erica's journey isn't about having all the answers. It's about leading with heart when the path isn't clear. Whether you are navigating a career shift, building a team, or simply figuring out who you want to be next, this conversation will remind you that strength isn't loud, it's consistent. Stay with us till the end, because this one may change how you see leadership, resilience, and yourself. Erica, welcome to the One Away Show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you here as well. So Erica, what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today?
So I would say there's not any one specific one away moment, right? Thinking through what has been the most transformative in life, it's really thinking about life as a series of experiments that have led to learning and transformation. We're always evolving and always growing.
A work moment, we were talking about locational moment, we were talking, a series of things. Clearly you've had a life and done some really great stuff, but maybe start out and share some from the work perspective to start. You mentioned there were some pretty pivotal crossroads of you had to decide between left or right. Why don't you tell us a little bit more?
Oh, for sure. And I'll preface this by saying I'm a huge believer in the butterfly effect, right? Everything that we choose or decide to do can be just a pivotal moment in our lives that we have no idea of at the time. And just recalling my first corporate job, I'm in an office, and my boss at the time had said, you need to pick between being a great graphic designer and a great marketing strategist. And I sat with that for a long, long time because I was really passionate about design at the time. But, an experiment, my hypothesis was, I think there's more upside in marketing strategy. And that's what I went to, much to my boss and my team at the time's surprise. And I would say it's paid off for sure. Haven't forgot those design roots, but that set a whole new trajectory in terms of where things have gone and the people I've gotten to work with that helped since then.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about this. Your background in passion and design for graphic design and the visual side of things. Where was that born out of?
I've always been an artsy person. Always super creative, drawing, painting, writing. And when I was in my first role, that's kind of how I got started. I was doing data entry. I graduated college in 2010. I'm dating myself a little, but, economy was not great, right? So I took a job getting what I could do, which was data entry at this great company, entering like biometrics into spreadsheets. Their marketing person was a little challenged. And I said, hey, I can do graphic design. Let me do it. So I was helping her. She left. I stepped into her role, and was doing all the design for, the company at the time had, 50 plus clients. So I was doing graphic design for all of them. And then they needed marketing strategy as well. So as we grew, it came time to pick.
I'm glad that you picked what you did, knowing what I know about you, but it's cool to hear the roots or the origins of the artsy self. When you were asked that question, you pick a lane, pick a, place, what made you look back on that decision? What made you say,
okay, marketing strategy or like that side versus going super niche into design kind of spoke to you? Like why did you make that decision? What kind of inputs, decision making did you use to make that decision?
I'll be honest, my first reaction was, why do I have to pick? Right? Why can't I do both? And thinking through, how do I get to still keep what I'm really passionate about and good at, while also developing this other side, this other opportunity that has more upside, right? I was able to see what marketing strategy encapsulated and the creativity that is involved in that side of things. Ultimately, I know marketing strategy includes design thinking. It includes all of those beautiful visual aspects that I was used to doing. And so that's why I went that way.
Did you feel at the time that you had a strategic muscle, or was that like territory that you hadn't maybe crossed into, that you were like, I need to further develop this, but this is exciting because this is, unencumbered territory. So yeah, like I'm just curious of where you were in your own growth development at that period of time.
Yeah, it was something I had dabbled in and been exposed to, something I studied in school, but not something I had really rolled up my sleeves and put a lot of time into. So I think that was probably part of the excitement as well, right? I know what the graphic design path looks like. I don't know what the strategic marketing path looks like, and the possibilities could be endless. So let's go down there. You're only young once. You can only try things one time, and then what's the worst that happens if it doesn't work out? There's always a backup plan.
I mean, it seems like a pretty thought, like, you didn't like overcomplicate the decision, but you thought enough of like what's going to maybe create the most upside. And then, all right, if this doesn't work, like, you're creative enough to figure out what's next.
Exactly. Let's just jump in and try it out.
So like once you made that decision and you said the butterfly effect, everything kind of unfolded after that call, what changed?
Our team was growing. I was able to work on some more diversified projects with company leadership and executives, and really was able to hone those skills of strategic marketing that enabled me to, I never thought I would leave. I never thought I'd have more than one job. Both my parents, they're amazing. They taught me the value of hard work, but they both worked at their companies for, 30 plus years. My dad was at Bank of America for 40 years. I didn't know you could have more than one job. It didn't seem like an option. So actually I got engaged. I was living in Baltimore at the time. My fiance was in Northern Virginia, and that commute just is not good for anyone who's familiar with the DMV. And I said, you know what, I'm going to move to Nova. I'm going to get a new job and use that strategic marketing muscle to land something new. And that set off a whole other trajectory of learning and experimentation that was super exciting to dive into.
So it sounds like to also play back to what I'm hearing, you grew up with a pretty traditional path of what like you saw was the mold. You had parents who worked the same job and the same career. You didn't realize that, hey, there were multiple options available to you if you open your eyes up. That's what you're saying?
For sure. And I think, you saying that, the way I grew up, the environment I was brought up in, very risk averse, right? Very conservative, risk averse. And I think that shaped me to, yes, think about those risks, but I'm also a risk taker, right? Like almost like you push against a little bit about, I think that's just human nature. How do we push against what we were necessarily brought up with or things like that? And that's kind of just been my MO. Like, let's push the boundaries. Let's try something new. Sometimes you have to throw caution to the wind and try something in order to grow.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad that you were able to maybe step outside of the comfort zone a little bit or a lot of it and kind of pick a new mold and new path, but also maybe keep those values. I mean, definitely can serve you too in a way of maybe not getting you in too much trouble, but also like, hey, there's a bit more expansive way to do things. And it seems like you've definitely walked into that more expansive way of living.
For sure. And those were early days, right? things have certainly developed and grown a lot since then.
Totally. Erica, talk to me about, you said you met your husband and then moved to the dear fiance at the time, or partner, and then, married, etc. And moving to the DMV, where did you grow up? Like, give us a picture of like where you grew up. 'Cause it sounds like some traditional roots. Life is this way. Yet you've kind of defied that in many ways. So like, tell us about like coming to the DMV, like how that's changed maybe your perception of maybe what's possible for yourself. So yeah.
For sure. I grew up in a town called Ellicott City, Maryland. It's in Howard County, about 20 minutes from Baltimore, 45 minutes from DC. And, same house my whole life. I have a sister, just, I would say very like traditional, very, positive, quiet upbringing, a lot of great values, a very positive experience. But I've always been kind of like the risk taker of the family in general. Like, let's test something new, or let's try something new, right? And so that was interesting. And when I met my now husband, I met him while I was in college, and he came from a very large military family. So kind of the opposite of my quiet, very routine lifestyle. They, moved all over the place. He has 6 siblings, so lots going on. And then just coming into that was super interesting. We were together through 2 deployments, so getting used to like uncertainty as just a way of life really taught me a lot of put things in perspective for sure, but just taught a lot of like patience and grace, right? And to be really cognizant of what are the real stakes here of what we're doing. Is it life and death? Because, well, like those situations exist, but so often what we do in our professional lives, yes, they're high stakes, but are the stakes really that high? No. So it allows you to put things in perspective and take more risks, right? Because you know that there's a backup plan or there's a safety net. And if not, it'll be okay.
It's awesome that you had perspective as well from maybe your partner who maybe grew up with a completely different way of living, big family, military, but also too, like us creatives, we need a sense of sturdiness and structure to our creativity. And I've met him a few times. He seems pretty solid and grounded, at least from my perspective. It's only been a few times, but seems like a great counterpart for your own thriving.
Oh, for sure. I think, a creative mindset needs some of that engineering mindset to balance things out a little bit, which is huge. But again, butterfly effect. Every choice has like this series of effects down the lines, right? And that, choosing a partner is obviously one of the most major choices anyone can make in their lives. But it certainly has shaped my career, how I act as a leader and a professional, and through that, the lives of other people too.
And now you're a mother, and about to be a mother of 2.
Wild, right?
Your career, right? I mean, obviously you're have a pretty neat role right now in front of a good company and have a lot of, I think, leadership. But was this always like the plan, like what you had in mind? Like was this, as you look back maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you're like, I want to lead more marketing at a big company. Like what was running through your head then? Or has this just been some natural unfolding and butterflies have come and just one foot in front of the next?
I think when I made that decision to pick marketing strategy, that was the vision. Like, I want to lead marketing at a firm and lead people and inspire people and help others through my influence. Did I know that would look like where I am now? Definitely not. And actually the way that I got here was, experiments, you have successes and failures, right? And failures are just as important as your successes. So, when I was interviewing and looking for another job at the time, I actually interviewed to be part of a team. I was kind of a one-woman show at my previous role, and I wanted to learn. I know I needed to like learn and kind of be under someone's wing. And I said, hey, let me interview with this company. And I did. I didn't get the job, but they introduced me to the CEO at First Heritage, which was their, sister company, and talked with Alex Wish. And almost 9 years later, here we are. So I would say that was the best failed experiment of my career, right?
I'm sorry, maybe I lost you. The sister company was
Stanley Martin.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Got it. And why do you think they didn't pick you?
I don't know. I'm gonna say it was a happy chance. Maybe they referred me to Alex, so that's all that matters. But I think having that exposure to their team helped, because I now work with their team on a regular basis, and it's that familiarity has been amazing. And there's no better compliment than saying, maybe you're not right for here, but you're perfect for this role somewhere else. So I've never been more grateful to not get a job before.
Erica, so you've been at First Heritage how many years now?
It'll be 9 in November.
Like, as a leader, as like Erica Goodwin, the person, not so much as the Erica Goodwin, like in front of marketing, who's grown with the company over these last 7, 8 years, 3 years. Like, what have you had to develop yourself as a leader to grow a department, build a team, support a organization that's growing very, fast right now? Like where's your development come from to be able to step into the role that you've had?
I think a lot of it is empathy and patience, being willing and able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and see where they're coming from. That's huge, and that's essential for any role that we have in any part of our lives. But to build a team and to build rapport, because at the end of the day, it's all about relationships, right? And how do we help people through their challenges? Being able to fully empathize and understand someone's needs quickly so that you can address them and help them grow from whatever pain point that might be, and suggest more experiments, right? Being able to identify a need and then ask for help around that need too. Asking for help is not something a ton of us are trained on, or necessarily even comfortable with, but learning how to effectively pool resources and find connections was definitely huge.
I think you've definitely demonstrated empathy in many regards. I think also just probably patience with all the growth and changes, but then also, you've I think what's neat too is that, I'm hearing you say as you built this team, these elements of graphic design, these elements of things that you've loved, had a spirit of, you've been able to bring in under you and next to you to kind of fulfill on being able to do that. So that must be pretty special.
It's really cool. And, I think something else is just being adaptable, right? Of course, you have to make a decision, stick with it, follow it. But in any experiment, you're going to get extra factors that come in that change an outcome, or maybe they change the fact of the matter. And you have to be willing to be fluid and embrace kind of that messy middle part of life. So much of how we live is in the messy middle, and being okay with that, being fluid and being, like I said, adaptable to change, right? People change, situations change, the market changes. So how do you adapt so that you can actually thrive through those fluctuations?
In your business, what would you say, on that note, has had to, where have you had to adapt as a leader, right? And because the industry you're in has changed so much, and it's a very fast moving, a lot of changes and regulations and so much stuff, but that's probably required you to be on your toes the most. So what have you had to change with the most given the industry that you're in?
That's a good question. I would say probably the biggest thing over the last 9 years, and this is probably true for most industries, is technology. It has completely shifted the customer experience and customer expectations around how they interact with applications, humans, institutions in order to obtain the services that we provide. And through that, as a marketer, being able to adapt and help people get what they want and what they need has been huge.
So, you talk about the technology changes and you talk about, let's just say your CRM. I know like a year ago or 2 years ago, it was like a big initiative for you. I mean, talk to me about like, as you look at maybe not CRM specifically, but as you look at the technology landscape, right? You're in a role to support hundreds of loan officers and kind of make their job as easy as possible while also having the burden of like corporate marketing and initiatives as well. Like it's not, I would say, easy position for you to be in knowing what I know about you. So when you look at the technology landscape changing and being super adaptable, like what are the pieces that you're looking at, right? To say, I need to think about XYZ components. So if these are done properly, our loan officers are going to be the most successful.
For any tech component that we plug into our platforms, it's partnership is key. I'll back up by saying, partnership was the name of the game for us last year. Within a 60-day period, we saw the catastrophic failure of our CRM. A website development project was going sideways in the early part of last year. So we were risking website uptime. And then we found out from our social publishing platform that some key features were going away within 48 hours. So partnership, reliability, number one, right, for us and our team. But it really forced us to look at, all right, who are we working with? Basically we're starting fresh, right? These systems and I guess tech pieces that we had been working with for, some up to 4 years, but, different amounts of time. Are they really serving us? What worked well, what didn't? And, coming back to your question, partnership number one is who we're working with pushing us as much as we're pushing them. Best practices, and then working for a sales-driven organization, right? Getting input from our sales team during that evaluation process. Is this custom built and purpose-driven for a salesperson to use it and be successful? Sure, we want it to be easy and helpful for us on the admin side, but at the end of the day, this tool is for our production team. So does it have things that are going to, be easy? Can they access them at the click of a mouse or on a mobile app while they're on the go? Can they set up automation? And furthermore, recently, or I would say over the last 5 years, can it be highly customized to the individual's brand and the unique way that they like to message and do business? That is a challenge and it's exciting opportunity. But when we were planning through, all right, what do we plug back in now? Those were the key things that we looked at. And now we have all the right players in place and the future couldn't be brighter.
It's interesting as you're talking about, obviously you mentioned that thing at the end, which is definitely interesting. But I think what I'm hearing you also say is like it's required a lot of other infrastructure pieces to like be in place so that other initiatives that you maybe take on in partnership are also going to be amplified further because the system isn't just the CRM. A system isn't just the corporate marketing materials we're creating. It's not just about helping LOs with getting out into the world and connecting that to their prospects and home buyers and realtors, right? So that's, I think, a super interesting insight that maybe I hadn't processed. But is that fair to what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the sum of many parts, right? We go back to butterfly effect, right? Someone sees someone's post on Instagram and that then ignited some sort of question that they then Googled this person, and what we put in place made it easy for them to reach out. And then the loan officer's messaging was already built out, customized, right? All coming back to like a post. And it's just these little things that from an infrastructure standpoint, if we have those set up and truly built out the right way, it allows all of this greatness just to flow through.
What, when you look at Question I have, and as I've been learning more about your industry for maybe the first time in 20 years, should have started that a long time ago. But as I'm learning more, it's making me think about even the stuff you have to think about every day. When obviously in the mortgage industry, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to make these mortgage loan officers feel supported, and to connect with their, give them materials, connect with their home buyers, their realtors. But then, how do you look at your time though of saying like, I have to support LOs versus like, we need to create a corporate brand that really speaks to realtors and also a face for home buyers. Like, how do you think about where time goes? And then in terms of like an audience segment, like realtors versus home buyers and like who you're actually the face for, like, how do you answer that?
Well, I think as a corporation, it's different than from the loan officer standpoint, right? So as a company, we're kind of all encompassing. And when we first started, we didn't have consolidated marketing initiatives 9 years ago. So really our focus at that point was, how do we build out a solid foundation with a singular brand and rallying cry that everyone can unite under? Then after that, it was, how do we pivot to be more loan officer centric, right? While we're maintaining this great brand, and a lot of our time that's focused on corporate branding is more optimizing and tweaking to be modern and to support the LO infrastructure. But then from the loan officer standpoint, audience segmentation, messaging, that all is completely unique to the individual. What works for one loan officer is going to be completely different than what works for another. So tiering out what that looks like, having kind of a default for everyone to start from, that works really well, right? And then people can kind of opt in to things that then work for them, right? And they'll get the most return on that investment of time and or monetary resources that they're putting into things with our team.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's an interesting makeup of like all the pieces that you have to balance and stakeholder communications across various pools of people. And then all the pools of people who have to communicate to their people. So that's...
So, if you think about agency work, it's very similar, right? We're the in-house agency for each of our loan officers.
I mean, Erica, I think you see the future well, and you, I think, give thought to how things can be better, and which I've always appreciated in our chats. When you look at the industry you're in and the marketing container of that industry at large, let's talk 5 years down the road. Like, where do things need to be for the mortgage companies of tomorrow that are going to exist? Like, what needs to change?
I think communication is key, right? So many people are already hip to the fact that, yes, things need to be instantaneous, need to provide kind of that quick gratification from the consumer standpoint, right? Where is it a technology piece? Is it an app? Is it something that puts information right at folks' fingertips so they can make an informed decision? Yes, people are already working on that. But then how do you pick the person where you're getting that information from, right? And I think from the marketing standpoint, it's meeting people where they are and connecting humans to each other versus focusing on connecting corporations with the end consumer, right? So how can we foster those connections and build those out in a way that is streamlined? AI is coming, it's here, it's already disrupting things. How is that like a member of our team? It's not an adversary. AI is an extension of our team to help things grow and make things even more seamless. But I don't see the need for human connection advisory, especially for something like buying a home. It's the biggest transaction that most people will make in their lifetime. A lot of studies show most people want to talk to someone about that. And they want to be able to ask questions. That's not going to go away. That's not something that AI or a great piece of content can replace. So how do we marry those two and continue to grow those moving forward? That's the challenge and the opportunity there.
it seems like there's a little industry talk about like the mortgage industry, like mortgage bankers won't be. I mean, what you're saying is it's like AI is here. Yes, LLs need to communicate in a personalized way. Yes, we get that. The mortgage company needs to keep up with the consumer speed of communication for what they want. But in a world where people are saying, hey, like LLs aren't going to like be needed because of the technology, you're saying, hey, like LLs are going to be needed because that piece is never going to go away, but it's everything around that experience that needs to be expedited and evolved with technology. So just that human touch point is the core part of the experience where everything else is made a lot more seamless.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think in 5 years, there'll be a lot fewer loan officers. Those loan officers who embrace the disruption and everything that's happening with technology are going to replace those who do not. Absolutely. And same thing for companies in our space that are looking at innovating or not. The risk of not being part of this movement is becoming irrelevant. So I think that's definitely key.
So you're saying like, hey, like it's interesting, right? Because you're in a space where it's like you can create top-down initiatives, right? And you obviously you can pull people up from the bottom and you can get them bought in, but you can lead a horse to a horse to water. You can lead a horse to the best water in the world, but like it's on them to drink that, to do what's best for them. So like for the law officers of tomorrow, the ones that are going to be the most successful and leveraging sales on what they do, the marketing pieces, like for the ones that, let's say 10 years from now are still around, like how are they evolving in the way like today maybe they're not, that they need to stand out ultimately, that they need to adapt with the times, they need to adapt with the industry? Like what would you tell them to, let's say, the 25-year-old rock star sitting in your office tomorrow and saying, look, like it's a competitive industry. If you want to be a star, truly a star here in 10 years, this is what it's going to take. Like what would you say to that person?
It comes down to relationships, right? So cool. Maybe you have a fabulous book of business now and you have those relationships. How are you staying on top of those relationships? But then as times change and you need to establish more relationships, what are you doing so that people want a relationship with you, right? And that comes back to personal branding. So with us being flooded and oversaturated with AI-generated content, it's so easy to put things out into the world now, right? How do you, as a salesperson, differentiate yourself from other people and create meaningful connections in a space where that's not happening necessarily, meeting people down on Main Street in person and shaking hands, right? It's happening in digital spaces. So how do you build a really strong digital brand that fosters community and connections, and getting that figured out, I think is going to be what drives people and differentiates people in the future.
I love the industry's focus on relationships and the trust and what it takes to succeed and staying on top of relationships. Let's just say in your role, right? And like, let's bring you back to the day, like not even stepping outside the future. Like what are you doing, to support these, LOs to stay on top of relationships? Like what's it take? Again, you could give them the best content. You can't be tapping on their shoulder, coaching them and saying, did you follow up with Jimmy, Johnny, and Sally today? Like how much do you see your role and responsibility and then doing their job for themselves, which ultimately benefits you, because you could do an amazing job, but like that's not appreciated or that's not leveraged properly. So like where do you see the line being?
The line between what we can personally do versus what a lot.
Yeah, like you're making things effortless and frictionless and easy and like creating like LO success in a lot of ways, and while painting an image of a corporate brand, but you can't make people take action on those things. So like, how do you see your role in driving that success versus understanding like, hey, the line of like, here are just things like I'm not responsible for. You know what I mean?
I think it's, we have to be realistic, right? And again, coming from a place of empathy, what is really going to drive value at the end of the day, and being able to communicate that, and what is value to person A versus person B, and are there frameworks that we can create that provide value across the board on a customized level? At the end of the day, as a centralized team, we can't in a scalable method be doing the onesie twosie, initiatives for every single person, right? It's just, there's not enough time in the day unless our team grows exponentially, right? And then is that value at the end of the day too, for us or the loan officer? So really focusing on, all right, Brian, you're a loan officer. What are your goals, right? What are the things you want to accomplish by the end of the year? Really taking the time to understand that, and then saying, all right, here are the 2 or 3 things that we're going to help you do and help you do really, really well. And here's what's required of you. So your challenge, if you should choose to accept it, is this. And that typically gets a lot of buy-in. Now, if we're talking something maybe more standardized, right, where it's something like a tool that we're providing to people, if there's a way to make it fun or a little bit competitive, salespeople are competitive by nature, which is good. Can we do things like have contests or share leaderboards to get people excited and, to boost adoption and ongoing usage? Things like that are always fun. And then educating people too, right? I think that's the big part. At the end of the day, for bespoke services, the line is kind of, all right, well, you have to be willing to put a little bit of effort into it, right? Otherwise, it's not authentic.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's cool you're thinking about this for the industry. I think the team, and also like your own team, and how you set them up to set up others for success as a leader. I was going to ask you too, Erica. I mean, given the amount of stuff you cover, like where does like Erica Goodwin find the most like joy in her work? Like what do you love about what you do?
I love when I hear like, hey, because of what you did, we got XYZ referrals. That something like that, or hey, like I followed your advice and this video went viral and it had, 200,000 views. Like that's what it's all about. Like, yes, we can do these tasks. We can say over and over again, do this, it's going to work, but actually seeing it come to life, and seeing the results and kind of that like light bulb moment for someone go off and be like, wow, this really works. And then seeing how that inspires other people on the team to then come in and take action. That's what it's all about.
There's got to be a lot of fulfillment for you from all that you've been able to grow the last, you've been in the industry now, what, almost 10 years?
Yeah, almost 10 years. Yeah, it's been neat, right? And I think what's cool about it is no 2 days are the same, right? Things are always changing, always evolving. There's always room for innovation, and there's always room for experimentation and trying something new, right? It's about finding the right people, the right sales team, in this case, the right leadership team that supports that and wants to foster experimentation as a way to grow and drive innovation. I think that's a huge part of why our company is successful. There's the spirit of innovation across all departments, but especially from a marketing team, that's essential. If you're not experimenting, then you're kind of staying stagnant.
We've talked about where the industry is going, maybe 5 or 10 years from now. And we've talked about where you've shown up, where you've grown in the industry, but like, back to you when I said about where does Erica find joy? Like, when you look at your own career alongside, let's say, parallel path in the mortgage industry, let's say 5 years from now, you've crushed it and you're like a household name in marketing, you can go anywhere. We'll get you there. Like, what are like your career milestones? I mean, you grew up with your parents' traditional paths. You've evolved from seeing what you saw to like sounds like greater heights. But like, Erica's aspirations 5, 10 years down the road? Like where do you see for yourself, for your career? How does that impact your family? Like dream up the life for me.
Yeah, for sure. I would say 5 to 10 years, still leading a awesome marketing team that is experimenting, driving growth. Data is going to be more important now than ever, and we have more access to it now than ever. So figuring out ways to harness that, and probably I think for any marketing leader, technology is going to be a big part of a CMO's role. So embracing that and being not only a marketing leader, but a technology leader too. And using that to continue experimenting, driving innovation, and, at the end of the day, helping other people.
If you're a founder looking to grow without raising capital or giving up control, Relent is built for you. Founded by entrepreneurs who've scaled without outside funding, Relent helps companies find and retain talent, lower operational costs, and reinvest in growth. We've hired nearly 10 team members through Relent and streamlined our entire cost structure, freeing up capital to put toward what matters most. Even small teams can set up offshore operations quickly, compliantly, and without heavy infrastructure. With deep expertise in the India-US corridor, Relent combines cultural fluency with operational rigor and guides everything from team design to long-term scaling. Grow on your terms and start with Relent. To learn more, visit relent.team/arcbound.
I mean, it seems like you just want to keep the boat steady, keep moving and improving, and roll with the changes, but also not just roll with the changes, but be part of the change.
Yeah, let's drive some of that, right? I don't want to just be riding the wave. I want to make the wave.
Yeah. I think you're making some good waves for sure. Erica, I mean, we've covered some ground here. Tell me something that I should ask you about that I haven't touched on.
Oh boy. I mean, I feel like we have talked about a lot. I think you're asking the deep stuff here, Brian. This is good. I think, a big part of my approach and kind of my values is my belief system, right? My faith has been a driving force in what I do. And, having faith in God, the universe, that things will come to fruition. It's a backbone to how I operate.
Now, this faith of yours, is it more spiritual? Is it Christian? Is it all the above? Is it Buddhist? I mean, what kind of faith are we talking about?
It's both. I grew up in a very progressive Christian church, right? So I grew up, all walks of life are welcome here. You can take communion as soon as you're able to walk, right? And just loving and accepting of all people. I'll never forget when we were learning, and part of our faith is you become confirmed, right? So you're saying, yes, I accept this as my faith, and this is what I agree to. But as part of that, they took us to every other type of church, synagogue, temple, and different, mosques and things like that. And we learned a lot. And just in my other studies, I've studied Buddhism. It's all one story, just told different ways. I truly believe that. And there's one thing that's just uniting all of us, right? So if we can lead with the understanding that we're all united by this common truth, whatever you want to call it, God, Buddha, the universe, it's all one, and it's all driving us. And there's just so much love and potential there. It's, as long as we're willing to tap into it, and using that just to drive how we interact with each other. I think it's huge.
I loved learning more about you. I agree on the spiritual side of life. I think it all is kind of happening. Oh, let's go one question deeper, and then we'll wrap. You talk there's a spiritual side to the way you live, and faith is a guiding force for you. And I think sometimes in life, there are moments and I kind of reflected a little bit on this article you just liked, but there's these moments that are constrictive, like internally, like, there's a better way, like you might be stuck, or you might just like, you might know there's something bigger for you, but you don't know how, like, what's next. Like, what's a time in your life where you have maybe felt like walls a little bit too close to your shoulders and knew there was a better way, a more expansive way, whether that's work, whether that's personal, growing up? Like, what comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Yeah, I think, a quote that I live by, and I'm going to butcher it. It's like a metaphor where, like an arrow, right? An arrow is only shot by pulling it back. So if you in your life feel that you are being pulled back or held back by something, get ready, because you're about to launch into uncharted territory, and it's going to be amazing. Yeah. So that's like a motto I always tell myself, like whether it's a challenge, building teams, it's hard, right? Not every choice is the right choice. But then those things happen so that you can get to the best person for your team. Or there's mistakes that happen, at work. Those things happen so you can learn and be stronger and better than ever. I made a choice to work at a really large matrixed organization when I first moved to Northern Virginia, with a great brand reputation. And it was great, but I was boxed in. It wasn't what I needed. It was more money than I'd ever made in my life. And it was holding me back from my potential. So I took the chance and moved on to something else, and it opened up so many doors for me. That's just like one example, but that's just anything in life.
It's a beautiful analogy, right? Like, being pulled back is really the step along the way to being thrusted forward. What do you think happens, and like, do you take yourself back to that experience when you were being pulled back to ultimately be thrusted forward? Let's just say in that gray area of being pulled back, like, what do you think happens in that period that enables the thrust forward?
I think what happens is there's some things that have to happen. You have to realize it's happening, right? Like you feel this oppression, right? Or this burden, or like the walls are closing in, or a block, right? You're pushing a boulder up a hill. Being able to see, all right, and define what is that, and get crystal clear around what is the challenge. And then going back to your values, right? Like what are my core values? What works well? And just knowing and having the faith that these things are happening for a reason, and preparing yourself. I think the launch only happens when you're ready to let go too. You can't be holding on to resentment or bitterness, or anything negative like that, because you'll be trapped. When you're ready to, break with something and accept something new, and you need to be open-minded, you're preparing. It's a time of preparation, I think, too, right? Whether you know it or not, it's happening. You're learning, right? You're being pulled back. That time I mentioned, that 60-day period when kind of all of our systems were crashing down. It feels like, why is this happening? Well, it's because we were being prepared and learning what we needed to make the best partnerships possible. And now we are able, 18 months later, as a company, we're having conversations that we never even thought possible this time 18 months ago. So it's brilliant how things work and come together. And I know you and I have talked about a couple of things like that related to some other projects.
I was saying two things. One, 7 years ago, I remember having a conversation with you about what we're talking about now. But certain things had to come together to even be able to have those conversations on both sides. And then I love what you said about the launch only happens when you're ready to let go. It's like when you let go of what is and what was, like, you can accept what is ahead, even if you don't know fully what that is. And there is something beauty in that of the letting go. And Yeah, I thought that was amazing. I mean, you're killing it here at the end with some philosophy. I'm all about it. Um, Erica, this has been a joy. I mean, truly. Where can people find the Erica Goodwin? Reach out. What's the best place?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect and have a conversation.
All right, well, you're a gem. Thanks for your insight. It was great.
Thanks, Brian. This has been wonderful. I appreciate you.
Erica Goodwin's story reminds us that leadership isn't about titles, it's about impact. It's the courage to rewrite your story when the old one no longer fits. It's the strength to stand your ground in rooms where you don't look the part. And it's the grace to lead people not with authority, but with empathy. If you take anything away from this conversation, let it be this. The legacy we leave isn't measured by positions held or profits earned. It's measured by the lives we touch and the ladders we build for others to climb. If this conversation sparks something in you, follow the show and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Your support keeps these conversations alive and helps us bring more powerful stories to the world.